Welcome to the Experts Podcast. It's Nic Hayes with you, and I'm welcoming back a very close friend, a friend of the podcast. In fact, she virtually made this podcast really happen. The Experts Podcast wouldn't be anywhere without the wonderful Carmen Braidwood. Carmen, thank you for joining me.
Checks in the mail for the gloriously fabulous intro. Thanks, Nic. I appreciate all the effort I put in for absolutely $0 to make your podcast so great.
And what a wonderful topic you've just hit on. What a segue to head into for this podcast. It is, do you get paid for your media commitments? As an expert, as a commentator, should you get paid? Do you get paid? And hopefully we're going to be able to break down some of the myths and things that have been happening. A little story that broke last week, Carms. It, in fact, broke over the weekend. An influencer, a commentator on a very high-profile breakfast television show. Her name is Amanda Rose. She put a viral post up on Instagram, and it's gone out to all the other socials as well, letting people know about the situation of her departure from Channel 7. Now, before I get started, I should just acknowledge a couple of things. One, Amanda Rose is her name. I had to look her up on AI, and I got AI to tell me, because at the end of the day, she's not someone that I'm following or a part of, but I know that she has a very high profile, particularly on the East Coast. Her name is Amanda Rose. She is a leading entrepreneur, business mentor, and advocate for women in business. She is the founder of Western Sydney Women, a powerful network created to connect, support, and champion women across Western Sydney. She's known for her straight-talking approach and passion for creating opportunities. Amanda has become a prominent voice on leadership, entrepreneurship, and economic empowerment of women. She regularly contributes to media and public conversations around business, careers, and challenges facing women in the workplace. Amanda is a connector, an advocate, and a strong believer in the power of networks to create genuine opportunities for women to succeed. Carmen, she is all that, but she's not going to be a media contributor to Channel 7 Sunrise any longer.
No, she's made it really clear, hasn't she, in this latest social media post that has developed a lot of virality. And I would say that virality has been fueled by and added to by traditional media, Nic. You know, this is something that caught the attention of, yes, a paid regular contributor to both radio and television in the form of, say, Peter Ford, who mentioned at the Amanda Rose in his entertainment reports on radio right around Australia during the week with his commitments. And I'm very interested to know if he ran it in his paid segment for Channel 7 as well. I haven't had the opportunity to check that out, but maybe you, with your connections at Channel 7, Nic, will be able to shed some light on that.
I'm having a feeling he did not raise that at all. I have a feeling it won't. Now, look, it is a big question about whether contributors get paid and whether they should be paid, and how that works for both the contributor and the media outlet and its audience. So it's a three-way, I suppose, highway that we need to work out as to sort of how this fits and works. And I will say this from the beginning, and you know this very well. From a media stable perspective, we, for the last 20 years, have been putting experts and commentators in front of media. We're very clear from the very beginning that you do not get paid. You do not get paid to be an expert or commentator for a particular story, a line of news that is going out, or being a contributor to a program. There is a fine line, though, because I'll go back 20 years, Carms. In fact, I was a paid contributor to 6PR on a Sunday show. Morning show, and it was basically $100 a week to do that. It was more to pay the taxi, maybe a nice meal after, and get the taxi home. But it was just a token kind of payment that you received, and that was far more prominent in the years when there was less competition, I suppose, in the media. It was just radio, TV, and print. And media houses wanted to look after you and make sure that you did stick and stay with them and create some sort of loyalty. Is that a fair thing to say, with your experience as a broadcaster?
Yeah, look, I think what we're talking about here is the fine line that exists between being an expert guest and sharing some insight and commentary to support a story, and then crossing over into being a talent. And what I mean by that instead is a contributor who is part of the stable of that program and that network. And for that, I believe you should pay. And I think that is the crux of what Amanda has said. I do have a personal connection to Amanda, and I did know her previously to this blowing up. I'll point that out. And I did these unpaid contributor segments side by side with Amanda, so I can tell you a few things about her, right? In this particular case, we're talking about someone who is excellent talent. Right. So she's
Yes.
very good. If you get her on, you are guaranteed that she's going to make great television. And I really want to talk about what makes great television. When you bring someone onto your show because they're opinionated, because they have the capacity to take a few swings and maybe put their own personal reputation at stake, that takes some bravery. So then when you're dealing with someone who's a particularly brave personality, I've always said you probably shouldn't be surprised when they turn that bravery back on you, right? So
Yes.
when I was producing shows, I had more than one occasion where I had these kind of amazing talent kind of have a crack back at me when we ask too much of them. And I think this is a bit of an opportunity for traditional media to maybe have a little think about, what do we expect of talent? And Sunrise in this case, and I know I don't know if you named the show already, but, Sunrise producers, according to Amanda Rose, asked her to become exclusive to that program in exchange for really nothing else.
Yes.
And that's where I believe she saw the line, and she said, listen, if it's that, I choose no. And they said, well, in that case, it's nothing. Right. So oftentimes when you are expecting people to be loyal to your show, and I've been on the other side where you're the host, kind of make sure they feel the love a little bit. And that's where those stipends, if you like, come from. You got your little bit of money to help cover some costs, to help make things easier. Personally, now that I'm on the other side, back here being the expert talent, popping up on these shows, if no one's going to support me in turn with any loyalty, why should they expect that loyalty from me?
It's a great question, Carmen. It's a great question. And we'll dive a little deeper into that because I think that it has changed a little. So I just mentioned going back 20 years ago when I got paid to be a contributor. And now, let's face it, the media landscape, very, very different. It is highly competitive. There is a lot more competition for eyeballs and ears. And it has become very tight when it comes to the advertising dollars and the funds and the pool of money that used to be around. So it has got a lot shorter. I would say that at this point, though, as we sort of advance further and read the room at the moment, for all of us, an opportunity to read the room. We've just seen 200 people let go at Channel 7. Channel 9 had their let go not that long ago, just purely out of, and it's nothing to do with performance or work. It has everything to do about staying as a viable business. And that kind of situation and scenario, I mean, I was only just on an unpaid TV gig myself just only a week ago talking about asking for a pay rise and being across from another media professional, realizing that at this very moment in time that it is near impossible for someone to walk into the boss and say, hey, I need a pay rise because I don't know whether I'm being looked after in the right way or I could move on, etc. You're sort of not quite empowered to do that. And I think we just need to debunk a little bit of a myth with all the contributors that are on all of the programs here at the moment, whether they are radio, TV, or print, that no one gets paid unless you're a Peter Ford. Yes, Peter Ford, a regular contributor that is designed to build a piece of content around for that shows particularly. But if you're an opinion person, and I love what you said there about Amanda, I think she's very good talent, without doubt. But she's delivering an opinion. She's not delivering her expert commentary from her professional background, her professional services. She's doing something a little different where in a segment called Hot Topics to really create a little bit of buzz where there is two conflicting opinions generally to create something for the audience to go with. And that's where I'll just say I think it's a little bit much to say that your unpaid work didn't go without any value. The value that was brought to you and was
Mm,
sort of kind of delivered to her by Amanda on her social media post, that it was the platform that the producer had suggested is the value and return that she gets. I think she got it for 3 years. Half the reason small
yeah.
business and Western suburb women get their run is because Amanda has been fronting up and representing them and being their voice, and hence has built her reputation, her value in her own personal profile. It
So,
is.
with that in mind, Nick, did Sunrise go too far to ask her to pull back from other appearances?
Well, that's a great question. It is a great question but we do know, and I know I work with a lot of experts and commentators that actually get asked that. Please, you're doing other conflicting work with our competitor, and we see, look, it's our opportunity here. Can we hold on to you? I'm not sure she got the ultimatum that she described it in the post as it seemed like you must do this or you are out. It was more a bit of a,
Mm.
look, we're aware that you're doing Channel 9. Do you think you could just go exclusive with us because you've got a great platform here? And if we can't come to that, we might just have to drop you off. And by drop off, not as regular as weekly. That is it. I think
Yeah.
that's fair enough.
And I think that competition's the thing, isn't it? So that's fair enough. Competition, that's the name of the game here, right? Let's not kid ourselves into thinking that behind the scenes of competing television and radio stations, being both places firsthand, let's not kid ourselves into thinking there is not some games going on in order
Oh,
to make life difficult for the competition.
oh, my word, my word. And when you're raising the profile of an individual and then the competition's benefiting from that, and I
Mm-hmm.
still will say to this, and I hope Amanda doesn't come after me with regards to my commentary around it, in that I think she is great talent. I think what she's overdone and the method in which she's exited Channel 7 has gone overboard. I think she's actually devalued the 3 years that she's actually worked with them by calling them
Mm.
out on that, and also talking about the producer as a 5-year-old. I mean,
Yeah, that was
honestly,
rough. Mm.
it just lacked a bit of grace and decorum. Now that might fit with Amanda, that might fit with the people that follow her, but I just think you really cut your nose off to spite your face when it comes to working with media in the future. And maybe this is her 15 minutes of fame just expiring right now.
Can I counter that one? Let's think about that. Does it really end someone's potential to be engaged with and to have a relationship with media when you consider, and you just pointed to this only a few minutes ago, the turnover of staff in the broadcast media right now is redonkulous, right?
Yes.
You have got producers jumping between networks. They themselves are under pressure and therefore probably sending the odd email that sounds like it was written by a 5-year-old, because there are fewer and fewer of them out there. And they are looking like they may not have a job in 6 months' time more and more often, right? You know, if Amanda's done a relationship with a group of producers working on a program right now, I would believe that it is fair to say that in the fullness of time, a whole new staff could come in to work on that show, and she could re-establish a relationship in future.
Look, Carms, it's a great point, but I have a funny feeling that the producers that have been working with her, and again, I know we know behind the scenes what happens. We kind of know that, and this is the purpose of this podcast, is to really explain to people a little bit more detail that was obviously slightly missed from the social media post. Is that the producers tend to have great relationships with their talent. They love their talent. The talent is so important for them as their
Yeah.
programs progress and put forward. These kind of decisions tend to come from higher above, and Carms, you know those kind of decisions that come from those that are higher. You've been subject to some of those decisions in your own professional career, and it's not nice. But and at the end of the day, they're just shooting the messenger that is giving them a chance, or telling them what has been instructed that they need to do. My thing about this, though, and to your point around will the turnover mean that the memory will be lost? I don't think so. I don't think so. Sometimes a lot of these, if you work behind with TV, they've got an incredible database of commentary around each and every expert, whether they're good, they're valuable, what their persona is like. They've very much got the strong feel as to how each of them perform. This kind of commentary will not be kept. It'll be held for a lot longer than the people that are actually working in the system.
Yeah, no, I hear that. The little black book, the contact book, all of that gets shared. It goes around. I can't help but think, though, when you bring that up, of things like Karl Stefanovic. Karl Stefanovic managed to tick off Channel 9 no end when he left his wife. There was a huge, huge amount of negative press around him as a personality. And then what did they do? Only 12 months later, when they were suffering flagging ratings, they brought him back and they gave him a big personality makeover, and they repaired everything that needed to be repaired, and there he was back on our TV screens. You know, if it can happen for someone at the top of the tree like that, I would argue for your run-of-the-mill commentator who's making really good content on social media that pops off all the time, I reckon there's a chance. And you're a PR man, you get this, Nick. Well, don't you think there's a chance?
I get that, but I think you're talking chalk and cheese here. I think you're talking chalk and cheese because at the end of the day, Karl Stefanovic was far beyond. He transcended well beyond any other commentator in the country, let alone an opinion piece that would be hit on hot topics on Sunrise. This is far more than that. In fact, this week I was watching with great interest who was replacing, and it went off like clockwork. In fact, the rest of this has all been noise. They've just got on with the job. What I found was really interesting, though, Carmen, and I'd love your opinion on this, was the commentary on the posts. And I dived a little. I didn't dive too. I'm not a regular reader of people's on social media posts because it doesn't have a lot of common sense or let's say nothing you probably could use really realistically for any sort of future work, but it was very, very negative towards the broadcaster. And what I found really interesting was the amount of people that had no idea that she was not being paid to do what she did, and that shocked me a little.
Yeah, that highlights, doesn't it, that very common misconception that if you're a person on TV, then you are automatically getting paid. That is definitely not the case, right? There are just so many people that you hear and see from regularly who, and I'll add that word regularly, intentionally, that they are definitely not necessarily getting paid directly. It could be through a sponsorship agreement elsewhere with their employer that you might see something crop up for a start. There could be other business reasons why they're getting some attention. So you need to think about that too. And I think that all comes into that umbrella of critical thinking that we need when we're dealing with mass media these days. And we've always needed, actually, you know, this media literacy is lagging a little bit. Going back to, you know, the comments, like hanging out in the comments is really interesting, isn't it? You know, and a post will go off because of the opportunity for people who disagree with something that you've said online to get in the comments and create argy-bargy, right? And I think this is something that Amanda is an expert at. She has been able to craft social media content very, very often that creates a reason for her followers to comment. You know, she's pro, she's not afraid of talking about Israel and Palestine. She talks about Palestine, and I noticed lots and lots of times where Sunrise asked her specifically to give her thoughts on that in a very bold and direct manner that she was more than happy to share. And you got it, like, you do have to question, I guess, like, well, you know, what's the personal benefit of doing that? And that personal benefit, I think, is the social media platform, the opportunity for the commentary to start going crazy down below.
And it does go crazy for that. And that is it was in her argument that she was bringing more to Channel 7 than what Channel 7 was bringing to her. In one way, she could say that. She can say that because the numbers don't lie. I think one of those posts had 10 million views on it, which is far greater than the viewing audience of a daily broadcast of Sunrise. But I argue this, though, Carmen. The fact that she was on that platform, she was available to do that and be able to do that on a national level that had credibility, had value, raised her profile, and hence ended up bringing her odd 55,000 followers on Instagram. I don't know what they were before, but I would dare say they were a smidgen of that when those kind of posts. We get confused sometimes with people that follow on social media as to whether they're really getting, if they're followers and I guess following the lead or the conversation. A lot of them are just watching the disaster, watching the conflict more so than they're actually engaged in what someone believes in. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, I think there's huge currency in social media following, right? And the credibility it brings us is up there alongside the credibility of being side by side with a big TV or broadcasting brand, a media brand, isn't there? You know, so I'd say that if you're getting that in return, you've got to say, well, I'm getting my value, then yeah, I want to consider giving you a little bit of something else as well. And we really are getting to the point where we're starting to realize, aren't we, that it is a negotiation. You have to absolutely do what's right for you. And what I see looking through Amanda Rose's feed, if this is, this is the case study for this kind of conversation around how much free commentary and availability is too much, I think we've got to look at her and go, looking at your feed, you are always out there doing free stuff. Like that is a really interesting thing. And is there enough paid stuff coming in to justify that? And I'll just point at a couple of things I could tell immediately look like they are free contributions. There's the appearances on television on not just Sunrise on 7, but on other TV networks, including 9. And then there's also podcast appearances. And there is very, very detailed social media content, like those videos and edits. They don't happen quickly and easily on your own. You either spend time on your own to make those, or you're paying someone else to make those really well for you, right? Then there's all the comments back during that social media thing popping off. So it does make me ask, if it's taking all that time to do these free things, are you getting speaking engagements as a result? And Amanda Rose, I know, looking at how she positions what she is doing, is looking for that speaking. And so now I'll put my hat on as the president of the WA chapter of professional speakers and say, gee, you're going to want to be getting a good few speaking gigs to justify all that time. And I mean really good, well-paid ones, which she does have access to there in Sydney. You know, you want to be making tens of thousands of dollars, and you want corporations who have those kinds of budgets to trust you on their stages. So that also means you want to have some congruency between, and you brought this up before we started talking about this podcast, Nic, is you want to have congruency between your brand, right? Your brand needs to be the same on a conference stage as it is on a social media platform, as it is on a traditional media platform. And that is a really important question right now. If we want to look at Amanda Rose, I mean, do you want that on your conference stage?
Yep. Look, I love the fact you brought up all that had been done up until now that was free. And that kind of the message that she's sent there through that post is a suggestion that, well, experts and commentators should now ask for money to get on to TV. And for small business, particularly as she represents them, that's not possible. That's not possible to do. In fact, as we've already seen this week, is that Amanda Rose has been not only she's been replaced, but almost forgotten to the point where, unless we're speaking about it right now, we've all moved on. And I think that's a strong message to experts and commentators, particularly who listen to this podcast, is that you don't get paid for this kind of content. You've got to see the value that it can bring to your brand and to not just your personal brand, your business brand, and use it to excel yourself further. And that's where I think sent a very wrong message in that to small business who she represents, that I'm doing it for small businesses. I claim she's not doing it for small businesses. I claim she's doing it for Amanda Rose. And that's where I think that's where it gets a little bit it gets a bit murky for me, and particularly in the language that was used in that post. Uh, I mentioned it earlier. It lacked grace. It lacked a bit of decorum, and I think I think she's better than that. And I agree with you. I still say she's a great talent. She's a great. She is a moth to a flame because we just come to her. We want to find out what she's going to say next. And amazing content, amazing performer. And I'd hate to see her sort of completely disappear, but I truly think she's sort of really cut her own throat there on the fact that she won't be seen by many other media than maybe the one that was being asked not to do by Channel 7.
Yeah, that is the risk, isn't it? And we've all got to balance that risk, right? Opinion is the stuff that makes for great entertaining exchanges. It makes for great content on any platform, right? Content is king. It always has been. And opinion and difference of opinion and a good hearty debate is the stuff that we all love to listen to. We all also like to enjoy this kind of feeling of like we're going behind the scenes, we're getting something that no one else does. We like to speculate. And I think that if you can leverage that, do it, but absolutely think about the commercial realities that go with that, right? It is not new that a corporation at the end of the day that has very, very real pressures is the one paying for you at the end, right? And when I say this, I guess the TV appearance that you do for free will get you the paid thing elsewhere. And it is
Correct.
still a corporation that is paying for that elsewhere. Right.
Yep.
So we have to always think about commercial considerations.
You do. You absolutely do. And just to also reiterate that there is so many paid segments on all of these programs, radio, TV, print, there's also advertorial. This is paid for, a lot of this content. What Amanda was doing was the highest form of media that you can do, and that's called earned media. It is the greatest form of media that you can do because you're not paying to do it, and they want to seek out your content. They want to seek out your opinion and position. And I'll double down on that because it is an opinion piece, and I don't. It's not like she's prepared a 5-hour keynote, or sorry, a 1-hour keynote that's taken 5 or 6 hours to prepare. And we all know that even takes a lot longer than that.
Weeks
it's not
to rehearse. Yeah.
Correct. It's not like she's rolling up. You get the messages, and I do a weekly one on the debrief on Channel 7, and I get the messages first thing in the morning. I look at them, I do 15 minutes on it, and then I'm off doing my other work, and then I'll go and do the commitment later on. That's about it. And the value that it brings to me and that brings to my organisation is that it puts us up front. It lets people know that we practice what we preach, and we always get some form of inquiry. No matter what, there is some form of inquiry that comes from it. And I truly believe, Amanda, what have you done? What have you done here? Because you've become a news sensation for all the wrong reasons. And I think you've sent a wrong message to a lot of experts and commentators out there. You're not going to get paid, but it's still worth your while being that expert, that go-to.
Yeah, it's about deciding which is the hill that you're prepared to die on and whether it's really worth it, isn't it? And there's an example here in Perth recently. Perth audiences will be familiar with Big Don of Big Don Smoked Meats. He's got this incredible good meats, does smoked barbecue meat once a week, and you got to know when he announces it on social media to queue up for it. And something I noticed is that because of that story, he has had huge media interest. I've talked about him so many times on radio, and he's been interviewed, and he's had lots of stories written about him in local media. But he turned on an online news agency here, Perth now, owned by 7 West Medium, or whatever they're called now, Southern Cross's combination and merged station, SCA, turned on them and sent them $1,000 bill because they used a photograph from his social media. And I don't think he had a problem with it being on the website. He had a problem with it being on their social media posts that caused a reason to click through, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know, to me, it wasn't really something that I think is a hill you should die on. Just why worry about it? You know, you're getting another layer to this amazing media presence that you've developed, and it comes through, you know, you got to take the good with the bad. You get some good things, you get some negative things, and just go with it. But his audience, you know, his little community, the people who are rocking up on Saturdays to take home a big hunk of meat, they were big fans. So
they love it. They love that stuff.
So I'll turn that on its head. If you're Amanda Rose right now, I just would like to say to you, and maybe we'll get the chance to talk about this in person, but I'd just like to say to you, I just want you to be sure that as a result of this content and this hill you've chosen to die on, you are getting conversations with women in small business, women in Western Sydney, that will make a difference to both your bottom line and the thing that you're most passionate about.
Now, what we will do, Carmen, I will invite her onto the podcast to respond. But look, it is interesting. I think that it was a great opportunity to discuss the realities around being a commentator and contributing to media, because for a lot of people, they would just naturally assume that they're being paid, but in other ways they are. And it was just the way that it was positioned in the post that it was. And an ultimatum, it sounded very aggressive. And then also the fact that the platform was giving it to her as opposed to she giving it to them. At the end, it is a nationally recognised program that will move on very quickly. And so for all experts and commentators that are listening to this, get good advice. And I tell you what my advice from Media Stable has always been. If a media house asks you to be exclusive, you very much naturally can go back, have you got any budget to hold me as exclusive? If you don't, then you make the decision as to whether you stay on or not. And you're empowered to do that. You can ask. There's no harm in asking. If you don't ask, you don't get, Carms. But this was just a reaction and a post to something there that she didn't even wait for, I suppose. She just went and did it. And I think did it the wrong way. And it could have been done a lot better. Maybe we will see her, maybe we won't. But I do know that there are a few media houses that will not go anywhere near that for now to Amanda Rose now, because it's just too difficult to deal with. But experts are lining up. We're all replaceable, Carmen, and we're not just replaceable as contributors. We're replaceable as broadcasters, aren't we?
Oh, it's everything we do. Don't worry. Do not think for a second there's not another you just waiting in the wings there to take over. There's no doubt about it. And look, God, this is a really interesting and favorite topic. I love to talk about it. I think that there are certain people that your audience are there for, and it is important. And I'm talking now to broadcasters, to people behind TV and radio shows. You know, you build these people up. You build these people up to become loved by your audience. You do all those things to create that connection, to build a rapport. And if you take them away, you do that at your own peril. And I have absolutely seen cases where certain people have been removed from shows. They go elsewhere, they get picked up very, very quick, and their audience does go with them. But look, you know, sometimes they are replaceable. And honestly, there will be no big skin off anybody's nose if you go.
Yeah, and you talked about Carl Stefanovic before and his departure, and maybe the results on the Nines ratings might have even empowered Channel 7 a little more to say, hey, you're already with number one. Can you stay with number one? Maybe not contribute to number two as well. But, you know, they're discussions, but you can have them professionally, and you can do them, I always believe, behind closed doors. If you want to express it later or express it just maybe not so much on social media. I felt the post was very ego-driven to her own personal brand, as opposed to her suggestions that she was fighting for small business and for women in business. I don't buy that. I don't buy that at all. I think that that was a little bit disappointing from her. Hey, with your professional speaker's hat, Carmen Braidwood, the president of the WA chapter,
sure.
I'd love to, because this does sort of tip into, I guess, being paid for as a speaker. And we've had discussions about this before, about doing free and doing sort of low budget speaking, because, you know, a lot of speakers get asked to speak, particularly around International Women's Day or events that are perceived to be better for them as a platform, and they ask that. I mean, there's not too much difference here, is there? Or, but as a speaker, this is your professional outlet. This is where you make your money. This is how you put, bread on the table. This has got to be frustrating for speakers as well, and how you tackle it. How do you tackle it as a speaker?
Yeah, it's a hot topic, Nick. We talk about it a lot in the membership at Professional Speakers and in my networks of people who do make their money from being a speaker on stages. And yeah, look, my thinking remains the same on, say, International Women's Day. As an example, for me, and other people feel differently. I've spoken to another speaker who says, God, I wouldn't dream of charging for International Women's Day, right? From their point of view, they're saying, well, it's about the cause. Let's advance the cause of women's equality globally. Let's speak and give of our services to support that. Whereas my thinking is, well, if you want to advance the causes of women globally, pay them to do the things that they've spent many, many years and invested much, much money in learning to do. Right. But I also think, a bit like we were talking about with the commercial arrangement that's always there behind the scenes, right? If I do a free television appearance, yeah, sure, maybe then it's because I'm getting a paid media training gig elsewhere, right?
Sure.
So there's other things, there are other strings to the bow that you can package in to these arrangements. And I think that is the key, right? So if you're getting that paid speaking opportunity, then maybe you'll do something else in exchange for free to sweeten the deal.
Yep.
So I think we've got to think about like a suite of products. That's probably where I'm starting to feel a little bit less rigid. If people make an inquiry to a speaker and you become a speaker who just says, this is the fee, pay it or nick off, I think that's preventative to good business, and it doesn't take into consideration the changing dynamic, the market just isn't as strong in some places as it used to be. Some places can pay more for certain things than others. Certain speakers attract different fees. So it's a similar kind of conversation. I think you can add value and make things more affordable and more valuable to an organisation by changing the fee slightly. Does that answer the question?
No, you're spot on. Look, I think you nailed it, and I think this is why there is the very distinct difference between speaking and media engagements. Speaking, I don't believe anyone should get on a stage without having or receiving some form of compensation for that. And what that is, it should be respective of the person and the speaker and what they're actually delivering, let alone just the price of the ticket that's actually to get the people in the room. But when it comes to media engagements, you should be the best experts, the best people, and the best speakers in many ways will give that for free. They will give that and deliver it in any radio, TV, newspaper engagement because it raises the dollar value of their keynote. And you can see that work so beautifully. One of your great speakers amongst the PSA is Michael McQueen. His regular gigs that he does on TV, hello everyone, he does not get paid for them. And he takes out his time. This is a guy that can get on stage for $20,000 and do a 45-minute keynote, but he will do his 3 or 4 minutes on morning show TV and not get paid $1. So a bit of a wake up, peeps. It's just experts and commentators use the media to raise the value of your personal and business brand. And poor old Amanda Rose, I think, let herself down.
Look, it's one to watch. There's no doubt about that, Nick. It's one to watch, and it's a really good conversation starter. There's no doubt.
Carmen Braidwood, what a delight to be talking to you again. We've got to do this far more often. I keep saying this, that it's probably the most fun thing I get to do, this podcast, but I've missed you like crazy. And
you too, Nick.
Somehow I'm going to have to ask you to come on and do it for free as I do it for free.
Well, it all feeds into a greater media landscape that supports the business and the things we do for cold hard cash. Yes.
Beautiful work. Carmen Braidwood, she's a media mentor, a media trainer. She's the president of the PSA WA chapter. And in my heart and mind, she is probably one of the best operators running around the country when it comes to developing your skills in front of the media and a speaker as well. Well, thank you everyone for tuning into this one. It was one I was a little bit worried about putting this out because I just but I felt that I needed to have a few words around just the actual reaction and behaviour, because the media is going to quickly move on, but I think it's a great opportunity for all experts and people that are looking to do it to engage and raise their profile. There's nothing worse than an unknown expert.
You said it, Nic. You said it. And look, at the end of the day, these kinds of opinions, as I pointed out earlier, they take a bit of self-trust and a bit of bravery to share, and you did it. So pats on back. You've got relevant information to share on this topic. Don't be scared of the social media fallout that could come.
No, I'm not scared.
Or the commenters.
Bring it on. Bring it on. Thank you, Carmen Braidwood, and thank you, the listener. Thank you for taking time out to have a little listen on this one. And I look forward to having your company next week when we get to speak to another media or another expert. We'll see you then.